The Deadly Dozen, 12 journeys, 12 labours, add 6 kilos. We have the first ever female ruck. Hello and welcome to On The Rox Podcast with me, Coach Marshy. Hope everyone is well and everyone is doing great in their training. And for me, my thoughts for today are it's an exciting time to be a hybrid fitness racer. If you ask me, everything is there. It is vibrant. It is available and we are playing hard. So on that note, let's welcome today's guest into the show. Hello and welcome to you, Bex. How are you, Bex?
I'm really good. Thank you so much.
Good. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you and thanks for your time today. So before we actually dive into anything specific there, because there's a few bits that people are going to be right, we need to talk about this. Let's ask you, on a sort of day-to-day basis in this world, who are you? What do you do? What are you about?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here. In day-to-day basis, my full-time job, I sell commercial catering equipment. And then also I'm the founder and owner of, with my partner, Tim, Team Awesome as well, which is an apparel fitness company.
We'll ask you a little bit about that later on, if that's okay. It'd be good to hear all about it and understand what the background and the ethos of that is as well. But let's dive straight in. The hybrid fitness racing world, when did you come into this? If we appreciate it, and a lot of people won't realise that Hyrox was sort of really early on compared to what people think. It's 2017, and obviously now we're 2025. Obviously, the pandemic probably stunted the growth of this whole industry, but where did you fit into this and where did you come into it? And what was your first experiences of this? I call it the new side of the fitness industry.
Yeah, definitely. So my whole life, I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different sports, master of none, can I add? I used to be a water sports instructor. I've always loved every kind of sport, canoeing, kayaking, running, rock climbing, a whole host of different sports. I've always been pretty active. And it actually come off the back of me doing 2 marathons. So funny enough, you should say, actually in lockdown, they changed the marathon from an April time to a September time. And then they reinstated the April race. So in essence, I did 2 marathons back to back in less than a year. And for me, it was too much. I was absolutely sick to death of running. It was too much for me. The training was very lonely. It was tedious. I was constantly chasing times and pace. And just at that time, when I finished the second marathon in April, a advert come up on Facebook, as it does, and introducing the hybrid new fitness race of Hyrox. And I liked that because it came at the perfect time where I saw a lot of all different types of people taking on this event, these dates coming up. There was lots to choose from. It got me back into weight training, which is something at the time I was looking to get back into. And therefore, I just signed up. And that first race would have been in 23 in London XL.
Yeah, no, cool. So in terms of the marathon, are you talking about London Marathon itself as in, because it was like in, when they were close, weren't they? Like they did 2 within 6 months, basically.
Yeah, that was exactly right.
Yeah, so I did the like the autumn one, if you like, which is great to say that we did that because I guess we're part of like history because it probably, well, it never happened then before and it probably will never happen then again, hopefully. So yeah, no, it was an interesting experience as a marathon runner to do that and then do one that the sort of following April, which obviously you did. So and interesting, you used sort of the word there, pace. You know, you were chasing paces and you were chasing things. And then, like you said, this new advert comes along. Would you just say the timing was really good for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it did come into the first time I'd ever seen anything like that online. And it was literally 2 weeks after I'd finished the marathon in April. And it just come at the perfect time, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I did do the London Marathon that year as well, and then went to I went to it was Olympia, was it? Was it Olympia April? May?
Yeah.
Olympia
Yes.
May? Was that
Yeah.
your first one?
So the advert come up and then I wanted a bit of a gap. So my first race would have been in December, which was London XL.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it gave me a good chunk of time in summer to refocus my training, have something in the diary that was completely different than something I didn't have a clue what I was doing or signing up to be honest with you, and to go for that one.
And when I turned up to that particular Hyrox that you're referring to, I remember. So I'd been to, like, that was my first season as well, but I'd been to the Olympia in the May of that same year, and when I looked at XL that year, I walked in there and thought, this is a big show now. This is quite a big show. Whereas I guess now we can see that it's even bigger show than that. But when you walked into that sort of environment and that arena for the first time, this fitness racing scene, A, what were your expectations? And then B, your expectations versus the reality of what you were seeing?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't really pay a lot of attention to anything. And sometimes that's a really good thing. A lot of people, even in races and marathons, are like, oh, have you seen this hill? Have you looked at this map? And my answer is always no, because I just go with it. And when I first turned up to Hyrox XL for the first time, Tim was kind enough to come with me and he said, okay, so what is this race all about? I said, to be honest, I have no idea. And together we had to study the map and try and figure out what on earth I was going to do. Counting laps, the stations and everything else. I just had to go with it and figure it out on the way. It was big in terms of the venue, the people, the music's really loud. It's booming from the minute you get in there to the minute you get out. And I just had to take it. Obviously, no expectations. I had no idea of time, to be absolutely honest with you. I just wanted to go, enjoy it, experience it, and put a time down, because if I did like the event, then I have that time and experience to then go away and work at my weaknesses, or at least have an idea if I ever did it again, what to expect. So needless to say, it was amazing from start to finish. It was brilliant. What a fantastic concept. And I did come away thinking, wow, this is refreshing. This is new. This is better than what I expected.
And what happened next? Did it give you a feeling of wanting to buy into this idea of fitness racing? Did you decide to look into it a bit deeper? Did you decide to get a coach or anything like that?
Yeah, not at that time. To get a coach, I do have a background of not having a lot of coaches. I had one PT a long time ago, and he was fantastic. But I always go with, I don't come from a PT, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I like fitness, but I'm not educated into far as putting a program together for myself. But I did go away thinking, well, let's see what the maximum I can get out of myself. Obviously, there's running involved at a good pace and this distance. There's weights involved. There's a lot of plyometrics, such as the burpees. And there's also a lot of mindset stuff that I kind of need to work around. So when you come into that burpees, if you come into the wall balls, I completely fell apart. It was a disaster. And I was like, my gosh, if I ever did this again, we need to work on this. So I kind of figured out from that race what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. And if I ever did it again, what I would definitely need to put a lot more effort in on myself first, before I then possibly down the line looked at a coach.
And then what happened next after sort of that first race? What actually happened in terms of like where your season went that year and how it went for the remainder of that kind of first season in this world for you?
Yeah, sure. So I loved it, and I went online and said, okay, well, that's December, ticked and done. I do like having a goal over the Christmas period because it kind of keeps me focused. And look at another race, maybe the early part of next year, so January, February. At that time, there was tickets for Glasgow, and I thought that would be perfect because that's in March. However, they did run out of open tickets, but they did have pro tickets. So me being me, thought, well, why not? Let's go for pros on my second of a race. And my thought process was, I'm always under the mindset, you've got nothing to lose. You're not proving anything to anybody. It's me versus me. So we've got our open time. Let's do pros. Let's see how heavy and different that race is and the weights are, how the mindset works. And then you've got 2 times. If you hate it and don't like it, you can revert back to open. If you like it and want to push forward in that, then let's stick to that. So that's what I did.
And in terms of Hyrox, what is the answer to that question? Did you ever go back?
I did go back to open in Vienna because it was the Open Championships, and it's a bit of a convoluted way. So basically, I did open for my first one, second for my pros for my second race. I then had Olympia already booked, so that was already an open. After Glasgow qualified me for the World Championships, so I had Nice booked, but with an open to do as one more kind of race before then entering into Nice. So yeah, it was a kind of a weird backwards kind of way because of the ticket system at that time. You could kind of leave it to the last minute for you to decide. Can't do that now, but yeah, that's how that kind of worked out. So in essence, I did 2 opens, 1 pro in Glasgow. My second pro race was actually at the World Championships.
Well, there you go. Any Hyroxers that are new to the game listening, there was a time when you could get tickets that was not on the day that it was released or to be part of an affiliate. So yeah, and the sport's grown, and that is by no means a dig at Hyrox, by the way. That is just an acknowledgement of what's happened from back then to now. And that time seems really kind of like fresh in my mind because I've got my version and people listening will have their version. But as a coach, to be fair, Bex, it sounds like it kind of worked out quite well the first season in the end, world champs, but actually how it went for you, open, pro, open, and giving you that opportunity to, tune up for that first world champs. And as you mentioned it, let's just quickly unpack that then. So Nice, I was there, I know what it looks like, but just explain to everyone who's listening or watching what it was to stand on that start line and be a big sport or a developing sports world championships, and you're there representing your country. What did it feel like?
Yeah, it did feel very special. It isn't like a standard Hyrox race. You were made to feel very special. You're representing your country. You turn up to the venue, you have your England top on, you have your name on your top. All around the arena, you've got all the nationality flags, people from all over the world also in the same boat as you. The crowd was amazing. The atmosphere was amazing. The venue was brilliant. The whole design and concept of it, you were made to feel very, very special. And for me, when I was really small, that's probably why I did a whole arranging a variation of sports. I just wanted to represent my country in any sport. And to be honest, I didn't even care what it was. It could have been bowls or darts for all I cared. I just wanted at some point in my life, and I never thought it would happen, to be absolutely honest with you, to stand there with an England top on and represent your country at a sport you love was amazing and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, and I think just a quick word on Hyrox and the elite side of the sport. Having seen Manchester 2023 world champs the year before and then going to Nice myself, I personally feel like they put on a great show from a kind of elite perspective as well. It was the first time we saw the invitational relay and obviously the elite races in that. I assume you went and watched those that evening on that Friday evening. It was a bit of a spectacle and it was a bit of a show. And, I'll never forget, from where I stood watching that elite race, even though I've seen all the Chicago ones and many elite races since then in the flesh, that one will always live with me because it felt like a spectacle. How did the elite side of the sport capture you? Did it interest you? Do you think it was done well? What did you think to that kind of side of it?
Oh, yeah, it was absolutely amazing. We initially started off sitting in the stands and I got so excited. I had to go and join the main floor. I left everyone behind saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go and see that. I'm going to have to see Megan Jacoby, within a meter's distance. And I've always never really looked up to, soap stars or musicians or that sort of thing. It's always been a sports side of things. So the entrance of what they come in on their own music and their own themes and wearing, the kit that they had on with their flags, their names, these are like our heroes that we see online, and they're right there racing for titles and putting everything they have into the race. And it's no longer on TV or on YouTube. It's right there in front of you. The atmosphere was absolutely electric. It was fantastic. And all the men and all the women and all the relay teams was just so inspiring. To see these athletes from all over the world just pushing to the absolute limits was just brilliant.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a great moment, a moment that hopefully, you know, if we're around sort of 20, 30 years from now in the fitness racing scene, and we continue and the sport continues to grow as a whole, not just Hyrox, but as a whole, we'll hopefully have that memory, those of us that did go to Nice, and look back at it and go, that was proper good and privileged to be there at that time, because it felt like it came of age to me, that particular championships, and it was brilliant. So let's fast forward and touch on what I've just said there. This industry. Let's fast forward to the 2024, the Deadly Dozen. The Deadly Dozen. Now, anyone who's listened to my show from the start knows that I got to speak to director Jason Curtis very early on in the process. In fact, before the first race even occurred. But to somebody who's racing in Hyrox at Nice 2024, and, you know, you've done that, and then there's this new race, the Deadly Dozen. I'm curious, Bex, how do you, A, hear about it, and then B, make a decision that out of all the options that we now have, because there's become a few, what made you decide this is what I'm going for? I'm going to go and try that race out.
Yeah, so it's a twofold thing. I first heard about the race by Sam Bilby. She kindly ran a day at Lee Valley, and it was a bit of a track session coincide Deadly Dozen to give you a taster for it. So the stations were set up in the middle of the track and then running around the outside. And she actually introduced me into the sport and said that she's an ambassador now for the Deadly Dozen. This is what it's about. This is what it involves. And it's a very up and coming, rapidly growing sport. So I looked at it. I thought, actually, that'd be really cool to get involved. Looked at a couple of dates, and funnily enough, the first race I ever did was at Lee Valley, just to give it a go.
And in terms of the day that Sam Bilby put on, just timestamp that for us. When was that? Was that like in summer 24 sort of time?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, I believe so.
So sort of around the time that kind of the first Deadly Dozen events actually happened up in Macclesfield, that sort of time. And let's be fair, anyone who's being like blunt and fair about this, Sam Bilby is like Hyrox royalty, right? And she is a great person. I think we'll both vouch for that. But she's like Hyrox, and now she's standing there talking about this new sport and how it's, as you've just said then, she used the phrase, you know, it's a growing sport, an up and coming sport. So you're in, and you're at this day, and you're listening to what she's got to say about it, and you're trying things out. And as you said, you then went back to Lee Valley for the first event that was held at Lee Valley. It was the first, I believe it was the first Southern event. I think it was. It's like the first event in the South. And I actually got to MC that event. And we were there, and we met and chatted quite a lot. When you got there, just explain to me the initial thoughts, having been used to sort of the Hyrox arena in hybrid fitness racing, and then turning up at Lee Valley and being in this new environment and arena for a fitness race.
Yeah, I thought initially turning up on track, it would lose some of the atmosphere that you possibly get from the Hyrox, but I couldn't be more wrong. The way that the layout is set up is absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant from a spectator's point of view because it's always on an athletics track, which makes it easier to navigate for the spectators to stand to one side and have a full view and access of the whole competition. And then for an athlete, I really enjoyed it. I like the simplicity of it, insofar as it's one lap of running and the 12 stations do run in order. So I like that concept that you didn't need to count laps. You didn't need to get lost. It's not going to change every single time, which are you know, what happens in some other races, as we know. And yet I think people do go with an idea of that, oh, it's going to be a lot easier, maybe because it's on track, maybe because it is one lap and things run in order. But yeah, couldn't be more wrong. I just like the way that it worked, and the way that the judges were, the layout, the kit was just fantastic.
Yeah, and it poses a question in my mind, and you know, I like to be transparent during the episodes that we record, and you know, we're kind of, are we right to be comparing to Hyrox? Is this going to be the natural way for a little bit when something new comes out in this world? Are we, because Hyrox was like there, and you know, some people might refer to it as the leader, the daddy, whatever you want to call it. Are we naturally just going to fall to like a comparison? And like you said, you weren't sure what the track would bring, but actually you were totally wrong about that. But do you think we're going to naturally just, as humans, compare to Hyrox?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Hyrox have done a fantastic job in getting a whole new concept and sport off the ground. It is worldwide. It's massive. You've got world championships. You've got pretty much a competition now and a race in every single country. They are the leader, but like everything, there is room for others. There are going to always be spin-offs, and sometimes a lot of people do have a go at something and maybe go and you know, transfer over to different things to push themselves and do different things. Some people are better at running, some people are good at weights, some people aren't bothered what they're good at, they just want to give everything a good go. Maybe it's done for socially, maybe it's just to tick off things in a diary, that sort of thing. So yeah.
And there was that day at Lee Valley, there was a lot. There was obviously, with it being sort of like Sam's home track, she'd run the seminar event there, and lots of you had gone to that. There was always going to be a nice atmosphere there with that group of people. You could feel that on the day, but then maybe it's just the way Sam works, but that spread, her ethos spread on the day, and all of you guys that had met Sam and knew Sam up front, you almost became like, it felt like to me like you adopted everyone and you would all support everyone, which I guess is like Sam's belief, and you know, she's very like that anyway. But it felt very supportive of people that had been sort of associated with Sam before, and then the whole atmosphere of what Jay and the Deadly Dozen team bring as well. Those two things seem to, at Lee Valley for me, marry up very well, and the atmosphere, as you said, was brilliant. And would you agree with that? It felt like a really like togetherness event.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from Sam's first initial event that she held at Lee Valley, giving people an introduction into Deadly Dozen, was absolutely fantastic. It's what I needed. And to be honest, out of the 12 movements, or labours as they're called, there's a lot of new movements that I wasn't sure how to do that. I wasn't sure what was involved, what the technique was, what the movement standards was. So that really helped kind of initiate my confidence in that and going into the sport. Sam explained it very well, what they're trying to achieve as a company, as a sport, what the culture is, which is very important. So that helped a lot. So for us to turn up on that day and give it a good go, some of us had met before, some of us we hadn't, we're all just giving it a good go, whether that be singles, doubles, relay, that sort of thing. So that was fantastic to be carried into that day and event. And then, yes, what Jason has created as a sport is brilliant. The culture does feel different. It feels very much everyone's for you. It's very much you against you. The waves are smaller, and I like that. It doesn't feel like you're chasing after people, you're left behind, or you're panicking from the get-go. The labours are set out in such a way from left to right as you come around. It's very easy to navigate. The judges are pretty much one-to-one to ensure movement standards, but they're pro you. They're very encouraging. They've always got a smile on their face. There's a great atmosphere from start to finish. So for me, it just ticks all the boxes. And it's just brilliant. It's infectious, and everybody wants everybody to do well, and pull each other up for sure.
Yeah, and you covered a couple of bits there actually, but like the kind of one of the questions that I've kind of got in my head here is, you know, how does it make you feel when racing compared to Hyrox? And you kind of touched on it there, and I guess what I want to know is like, as a hybrid fitness racer, when we go to say a Hyrox and we stand on that start line, or we're in the actual big arena, there's certain emotions going through. When you're doing Deadly Dozen, is there anything that's different that stood out to you in terms of how it's made you feel when you were in the race?
Yeah, I think Hyrox sometimes, and this could be completely a personal thing, and I appreciate that, is sometimes can be intimidating. Box is small, the start's massive, and you feel very small and tiny, and everybody's sometimes maybe talks about times or this venue or that venue or how big's the rock zone or this judge was really harsh on this station, so watch out and mind out for this, mind out for that. So sometimes that can be a little bit intimidating, and I appreciate movement standards need to be met. But a lot of conversations I've had is it sometimes feels like some people are against you, whereas Deadly Dozen, the culture does feel different. And there's a lot of conversations where I've had where people have noted that and mentioned that, where it is pro you. It's just you against you. So everybody has come from a different background. Everybody wants to get different things out of that race. It may be their first race back into fitness. It may be their line in the sand where this is day one for me. So whatever this time is, it doesn't matter because I'm going to come back in 6 months and this is just me against me. It may be they're going for a world record, or it may be their first doubles events with a parent, with a friend, that sort of thing. It just feels very much an individual basis where goals are met and can be set and achieved, where sometimes I feel some Hyrox maybe kind of lead that into their race. It's their rules. It's a time and that's it. Without possibly, I feel like the stories are seen and read and met through Deadly Dozen, and people and judges take the time to understand why you're racing, what's your reasons being here today, what have you achieved, and that's kind of received and noted. So to make people feel seen and heard, I definitely feel that is achieved in Deadly Dozen.
Yeah, no, I will completely echo those thoughts and agree with everything you've said there completely. And actually, the way you've summed it up there is really good. And hopefully, anyone who's listening that kind of has seen the Deadly Dozen or it's just arrived in a town near you, you might be something that you think now. Yeah, actually, that's for me, and I can do it. So, yeah, no, cheers for that, Bex. That kind of clears up a few things as well because, like I said, naturally, there's going to be these comparisons all the time. It's always going to happen, but you know, you raced that first one, Lee Valley. I remember you at the end, but obviously that's been overshadowed by what I really want to talk about because I remember that because it's more in the forefront of my mind right now. But you finished the Deadly Dozen, and just for a timestamp for everyone, so they can kind of work it out. We're talking about three weeks between your first two Deadly Dozens. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Maybe four weeks max.
Yeah. It's got to be max. Yeah.
So not only did you beat the race at Lee Valley, but you decided to go back and do it again. So you travelled to Oxford to do it again, but you didn't just decide to go back and do it again, did you?
No. I decided to make it 10 times harder.
So let's go through that. Let's really unpack it. Oxford Deadly Dozen. In terms of recording, we're only a week off of that. It's a week after that. So how are you feeling? Are you still sore?
Today, day one, I actually feel okay. After some time of recovery, yeah.
Good. That's good to hear. So Deadly Dozen Oxford, tell me why it was different to Lee Valley for you.
So at Lee Valley, I just went with an intention of just figuring out the race, giving it a go, turning up and seeing what it was all about. I really did like it. And it was absolutely fantastic. So thought as soon as I finished, I was like, wow, I have to do this again. At that same race, my friend Alex, I saw complete the race in a 10 kilogram ruck weighted vest and was completely blown away. I mean, his strength and speed is mind blowing. And I was in complete awe. And I was like, oh my gosh, this race is really hard with the running and the 12 labors. It is weight and rep heavy. Gosh, like how on earth could he do that? That's crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I thought, I wonder if a female has ever done it. So I reached out to Jason and say, hey, just asking, has any female ever completed a race in a ruck? And at that time he said no. I was like, right, okay, what would the weight be? Thinking he'd be generous. Well, I say generous, and put it as 5 kilograms, half of the men's weight. And he said, no, it's 6 kilogram. So I thought, right, okay, well, I'm going to come back again. I'm going to get a weighted vest and I'm going to make this race 10 times harder. And I want to be the first female to do it in a ruck weighted vest. So Oxford was it.
So where shall I start? Okay, so you thought you'd get yourself a ruck. So just to be clear, you didn't have one before. You bought one purposely because you were going to do it at Oxford.
Yeah, I think it's something I had in mind of having one anyway. It had, to be honest, sat to the side of just slowly initiating it into a couple of workouts at the gym for very small bits and pieces, but I have never run in it and I've never used it in anger.
Okay, yes, that's cool. So yeah, it was purposely bought. Let's establish that. That's ticked. Then you check with, you obviously bought that after checking with Jason that was the case and that no one had ever done it before. And was that a carrot? Was that a bit of a carrot that you could be the first to do it?
Yeah, I think I'm always looking to push myself and find my limit to see what I can and can't do. And I quite like working out my mindset to see where I fall apart, where I'm strong, where I'm weak, what I overcome in that race, what comes to mind. I'm just curious about discovering that. So I thought, I've done a race once and it was hard, but it was really good and I loved it. So let's put on a weighted vest and see what this brings up. Let's see what I learned from myself in this race, knowing that it's going to be really heavy and hard and how I kind of cope with that. And yeah, absolutely a carrot. I mean, to be the first female, it didn't really matter what time I got, even if it took me 5 days, it'd be a winner. So I thought, well, let's go for it. You've got nothing to lose. So let's see what happens.
And you're absolutely right. There's nothing to lose going into that. But
Yeah.
there's also no data to look at. So there's nothing to understand what an expectation might be or should be, because you're the one who's about to blaze that trail for the first time. However, had you, based on getting a result in the one at Lee Valley just weeks before, so therefore, if we take into account that you carried on training as normal between the events, that you could assume that time was going to be a time that you could get again just a few weeks later. So then, because of that time, did that create expectations for you?
Yeah, so in my first race in Deadly Dozen, I believe the time was 56 minutes. And to be absolutely honest with you, I penciled in a time of trying to finish it in an hour and a half with a weighted vest. I thought that would allow for the extra weight of your heart rate, breathing, it's heavy on your chest. And I thought if the runs get really hard, I'll have to walk them. And if the bear crawls are even worse than what they normally are, I can do 2 steps at a time. So I penciled in a time of an hour and a half. If I reached that, fantastic. If I didn't, no problem. We went out and gave it our all.
Yeah, and what was the time? Because you are the first. Let's give you this moment. You are the first ever female to do the ruck division at the Deadly Dozen worldwide. Do you remember what I said to you at the end?
You will always be the first, and nobody can take that away from you.
And do you remember the comparison I made?
Of Megan Jacoby breaking the 60 minutes.
So no one will ever take that away from Meg, right? And I said to you, if no one ever takes that away from Meg, no one can ever take this away from you. And that is now yours. Is that kind of like you said about representing your country, and you wouldn't, you wanted to do that. You thought it would never happen in any sport, but you would have loved to have done it in one sport, and you now have. But people like us then might look at what you've done and think about that and go, wow, that's an achievement. That's mine. Have you really done that yet? Have you had that moment?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to let things really sink in, and that you're absolutely right. That was my intention, is I wanted to be the first, but also to say sometimes in sport and in life and in history, someone has to be the first before others follow. And my intention was just to set a time and to hopefully inspire men and women to give it a go and see what they're capable of. And once someone's done something, as Alex did with his first ruck, I thought I could do that. Had Alex not rucked it, it probably would have never crossed my mind. But because he did it, I thought, could I do it? And hopefully the intention will be to inspire other people and to give them the confidence and say, yes, you can. Give things a go for sure.
Because two things on that. Let's unpack that. The first bit being, you know, sometimes it takes others to inspire others. The first part I want to say is that like within a gym, say like my gym, we're already talking about who's going to be the first one to do the deadly mile, right? And although that's not going to be quite as prestigious as being the first person ever, on a more local level, that the likeliness is the person that does it is going to inspire the next one, right? But that person within our gym would always have the banter and the accolade that they got the first one. So it can be done on multiple levels. But the second part to this, really, and the main question is, we're sort of a week off that now. It's been a week since. Anyone got in contact other than us sort of like podcasters and the people that want to cover it from a press point of view? Is there anyone who sort of reached out and said anything to you yet, or has that still not happened?
Not as yet, but my inbox is always open.
Yeah, no, cool. Because you're right. What, you know, like Alex did his, and we saw that, by the way, and you know, we hopefully we can talk to him at some point as well. So Alex, if you're listening to this episode, mate, we need to sort that out as well. But you saw that, and like you said, that inevitably was the reason that led to that moment for you. What would you pass on to the ladies out there that want to like challenge themselves? Would you tell them, you know, your second Hyrox was a pro? Would you tell them to definitely do a Deadly Dozen before they put a ruck on?
Yeah, I would say do a Deadly Dozen first, because if the concept is new to you, just to see what it's like with the weights and the labors, because it is very rep heavy. The legs and the shoulders really do burn out. But I would say give that a go. And then if you want to ruck it, ruck it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It is you against you. There's no expectations, and just go out there and prove what you can do to yourself. I've always gone with a mindset that you can't fail. Even like marathon training, what we were talking about earlier, is even if you had to walk a marathon, you can do a marathon. You can't, there's no, oh, you have to run it in this time. If you don't hit this time, that's not good enough. Or, oh, my friend done it in this. It doesn't matter. You can't fail. It's always you against you. Look at your past and your future and where you want to go. Show your younger self what you can do. And I'm sure to be damn proud of where you are at now. And just go out and give it a go, because you just learn so much about yourself mentally and physically. And everybody is an inspiration to somebody else. You don't know your impact of what you have on your neighbor, your friend, your colleague, of when you go out and do something like that. So do it. Honestly, it'll just be the best thing.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And that moment when you know, what was the time, just for the record?
It's 60:37.
60 minutes and 37 seconds.
Yeah.
Cool. You can tell by my reaction that I've got a question that I probably shouldn't be asking, but I'm going to ask it. Okay, I'll give you a comparison. If I ran a marathon in 4 hours and 37 seconds, I'd be fuming. I'd want to get under 4 hours if I did 4 hours and 37 seconds. Is there a comparison here? Is there because it's 1 hour and 37 seconds, is there this urge and need to go straight back and get under an hour?
Yeah. I didn't know how close I was. And like I said, I wasn't chasing time. I just penciled in an hour and a half. And as time went on, then the labors went on, there's people saying, oh my gosh, you're going to go under an hour. You're going to go under an hour. I was like, no way. They've just got the data wrong. They've got the times wrong. There's no way I can be that close to my previous time, because this weight, it's heavy, is super heavy. It's hard. It's heavy on your chest. You're trying to keep your heart rate down. The runs you got to manage, the burpees, the labors, everything. It's just intense. And as soon as I got that time, I was like, wow, what would it take to shave off 38 seconds to get under the hour? So one day, yeah, maybe.
Speculatively, when you start doing what we would do with the other hybrid sports, where you take, so in Deadly Dozen's case, 24 components, and you're looking for 38 seconds. It's well doable, Bex, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I learned a lot from the race as what I wanted to do. That's my intentions. And looking at it, I did think I'd get to a point, possibly on burpees or bear crawls, and just go, I can't do this anymore. And I wanted to know how strong my mindset has got, because that's something I have been working on. And I'm glad that paid off. And to find those seconds, I've looked at the data and I'm pretty sure I can do it. So, yeah.
I mean, my mate Tatey loves a bear crawl, and like everyone on this show, whoever talks about Deadly Dozen talks about bear crawls, because they are just, we default to bear crawls because they're really hard. And I will just disclose it to the listeners and the viewers that I have done a Deadly Dozen. I'm not kind of asking these questions from a place of not knowing. I know what it feels like, and I understand the labours and which ones are problematic. And I think I've got to be honest, I'm yet to meet someone who's done the full race that says they love the bear crawls. I could be wrong. You might be out there. You might be listening right now. I don't know. But me and Bex think that. So, okay then, Bex. So we're talking about a 4-minute discrepancy here between you doing it 6 kilos heavier, basically.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like that much.
I know.
I feel like you've smashed it a bit.
I think I overexcelled, and in those times I should have left more of a gap, shouldn't I?
Do you think then? Do you think the initial reaction is because of that like experience of doing Lee Valley, and now you know the race? If you go back in without a ruck on, like 56 minutes is very much going to be a thing of the past. You'll go a bit quicker.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a bit like any the first marathon, first Hyrox, first Deadly Dozen. You're just trying to figure the race out of what you think the stations you're going to do really well at and are easy aren't, and of things that you think you're going to struggle with maybe would have been a little bit easier. So it's just to your experience. So I'm still trying to figure out, for example, what time I should be aiming for on a 400 meter, because that's very different to an all-out track effort. Your track effort. However, that's like giving the example for your 5K race or your 10K race. Plus, you're trying to run fast after all the lunges or the deadlifts, overhead plate carry. These are burning your legs out and burning your shoulders out. And then I'm trying to figure out what stations you can run well off those stations, and what stations you're going to have to hold a little bit back just to fully recover. So again, it's just learning the race and breaking it down. But yeah, I think I can also coincide that I think my train is paying off as well. So Sam Bilby is my coach. And there's a lot of strength stuff that we've been working on, that when sometimes you're on your own and you're in your own head and you wonder where you are in the field, it's nice that you can do different events and see that paying off. And that was one of the events it is certainly paying off, for sure. Like push press, I used to really struggle with. It used to really burn out my shoulders. And in the last couple of races, I've seen a massive improvement on that, but only noticeably once you put all the effort in, you're like, oh, actually. So again, it's just learning the race, breaking it down.
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point there. You mentioned about the track, like doing a 400 meter run as a track run versus 400 meters as part of the Deadly Dozen. I'll ask Jay. I'm going to have a conversation next time I see him that, I'm going to talk to him about that, because you're asking that question and you've done the race twice in two different circumstances in terms of like the ruck and no ruck. And you're asking that question straight away. So I think it's an interesting question. I mean, he'll be sick of me asking questions, bless him. But I think, like you make a good point, because if we go and look, like, it doesn't matter what's like, say tennis, right? I remember a famous interview of Andy Murray in tennis. He uses 400 meter sprints in his training to be fit for tennis. We would use that as a runner for marathon training. We would do at some point, the training cycle will involve some 400 meter repeats, I'm sure. Like, it's a common distance. But when it comes to Deadly Dozen and those people that want to know how far should I be aiming for, like percentage wise, whatever, is it a 5K time, a 10K time, you point that out kind of thing. Do you think mastering that would affect the labours, this whole compromise running idea of hybrid sport? Do you think mastering the right efforts on those 400-meter runs is going to be important, or do you think it is just a full send?
I would say, for me personally, I think learn to break down those labours and know what ones you can run off well at and what ones you can't. Because I think if you try and go full send, for example, say use two minutes. So I know roughly, say 400 meters is going to take me 2 minutes. For an example, trying to achieve that off of lunges and you don't achieve that might set you back mentally and dishearten you. Whereas if you try to do that after, say, for example, a plate carry or the farmer's carry, that might be easier. And then to give yourself a chance on bear crawls, burpees, something that's really leg heavy like the lunges, give yourself a little bit of grace and maybe set that back a couple of 10, 20 seconds or so to give yourself fully recover. And then on the strong stations, go, right, I need to hit this in 2 minutes. And then it pushes you on. And therefore, you kind of give yourself that bit of grace period.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice from someone who's done a couple of races. I think that's really cool. And I guess, there is worldwide data, as we know. This sport is blowing up, and we're looking forward to that, and we're excited about it as gym owners and as athletes and as podcasters. We're really excited about it. But I think there's some really good points there in the early understanding of what this race has become. Kind of, for me, the final question around the ruck specifically is, world championships have been announced, that Deadly Dozen are going to have some world championships. Would you like to see the ruck as a category in the world championships?
Absolutely. 1,000%. Yes. That would be really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I would. I think if there's room for it to be there, I think it should be in there. Because if you can do it as part of the race on the day, then why not put it as a world champs as well? It'd be really cool to see that. And just on that note, there's been some information put out about that, some early information. Nothing's been actually clarified and confirmed, but they have announced there will be one. Does that excite you, that there could be a possibility to represent your country in this sport?
Yeah, definitely. This is a really exciting growing sport. It has a lot of potential. The race is standardized. It's very achievable. It's very doable. And the scalability is epic. It's fantastic. It's got a great platform. It's got a good culture. And the ideas that they're put forward is fresh. And I personally believe it's for the athletes. They listen to the athletes. They don't have an arrogance. I'm not saying Hyrox do, but they have this really giving back culture to the judges, to the athletes. They want everybody to achieve and give back. So it's encouraging. It's inviting. It's the money possibly in the sport is definitely there. The sponsorship is there. The scalability of it, and to get other brands involved, is definitely there. So the championships would just be, just push the sport into the next level and the next tier on a global scale.
And because it's on a track, which we've seen in the Olympics, do you think therefore it has a good chance of one day being an Olympic sport if that's what they wanted it to become?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because it is standardized. The distance is standardized. The track's always the same distance. The scalability is big. The venues are all there. So yeah, I do think it has a very good chance of being in the Olympics for sure.
Yeah, and you kind of covered most of that. Was going to be my last question around Deadly Dozen. Really is, let's change it slightly. Where do you think this is sitting in the hybrid fitness racing scene now, and where do you think it will sit? Give it 5 years.
I think for me it's the top two sports that I'm looking at, and it has more growth than possibly Hyrox, because again, the sometimes the format that Hyrox currently works at, there is a limit, there is a ceiling, there's only so far you can get. And bluntly, as athletes, it's an expensive sport and we're chasing money and titles, and it kind of needs to pay out. Sometimes in some areas there's a small arrogance with that, of a very small window of the opportunity. So even if you win your age category at World Championships, fantastic, but that not necessarily gives you the platform to grow and exceed and benefit and reap the rewards of being an athlete. On low level, even everyday events at the Deadly Dozen, athletes are winning money, and it's that side of things that they already see that as a scope and an option for athletes to benefit. So if that goes into World Championships and age category winners with the monetary side of things and possible brands getting on board with that, that's what's kind of excelling them and what's exciting and pricking up the ears of other athletes going, hold on a second, I've got this one shot at Hyrox, or this very small window of getting into the top 15 or winning the age category, which is fantastic, but the ceiling's quite low and you hit it quite soon. With the Deadly Dozen, the scope does seem to be bigger, wider, more opportunities and growth of, like I say, reaping the rewards of an athlete would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think everything you've said there is spot on. I will happily agree with what you just said here on this show and this out there now. And I agree with what you just said. I think what you just said as well could be its own episode, because the beauty of life is that I'm sure there are probably going to be some people that would disagree with us and you on what you've just said. But I think it's hard to argue what you've just said, because I think what you've said just there is pretty spot on. And I think there are athletes that we probably know personally that are in older age categories that deserve some recognition here, and they're not getting it when they're at Hyrox, and they're not really getting it when they're at Deca or anything else either. But in Deadly Dozen, there might be an opening there, and there might be scope for it, because it can work on a wider level. And I don't think that's overly a criticism of Hyrox and Deca. I just think it just maybe should be acknowledged a bit that, in a world where everyone wants to be like inclusive in inverted commas, you're going to need your ambassadors and your role models that are older. And in a world that's obsessed with health, we're obsessed with health now and what's good for you, and keep moving when you go into your older years. And we've got some absolute world beaters, by the way, at the 50 plus upwards categories that are absolute world beaters. And they're a great example to society. And for someone that on a day job is here to promote healthy living and lifestyle, those guys are really important, and they could certainly save our NHS a bill or two. So, I mean, I could go off on a tangent, Bex, and I'm not going to. I'll leave it there. But I like what you said there, and I think you've got some great points there. And like I said, people will disagree. That's the beauty of life. If anyone wants to make that an episode and come and talk about that for 40 minutes, let's get it booked in, and give me a little shout on an inbox, because I'm happy to discuss that one till the cows come home. But anyway, Bex, last bit. Let's talk about, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see on Bex's top there, she's got a logo where it says Team Awesome, AWSUM.
Yes.
Cool. So tell us about that.
So Team Awesome is an apparel company that I run with my partner, Tim. And very much so we sell male apparel and female apparel, from shorts, t-shirts, sports bras, leggings, bags, that sort of thing. And the whole concept come from basically a brand of people being seen, being heard, as opposed to just buying a t-shirt and you wear it and that's great. We wanted to create more of a culture, more of a brand, people that work out on their own, that feel a little bit lonely sometimes, that you can come into your team. So this is your team. So it's a Team Awesome, and our hashtag is awesome built in. So anytime you turn up to your first gym session, your first couch to 5K or park run, or first time in the gym, to not feel intimidated or alone, that there's this whole brand, this whole company, this whole culture behind you, encouraging you back into the fitness space. So it's all to be, we have a really great community and people very proud and privileged to wear our tops. And what's really nice is as the brand is growing and spreading and developing, you're seeing other people turn up to different events. Go, you've got Team Awesome on. And it's this excitement that they get as part of that. So that's what we're trying to create. As part of that as well, we do a buy one, give one back campaign. So we're heavily involved in the charities over here in the UK of supporting our veterans and the homelessness. So for every piece of apparel that someone buys, we give one away to the veterans charity to help other people again feel part of their team. This is a brand new piece of clothing for them to feel inspired for a new and fresh start. So yes, we are in grassroots at the moment, growing and developing, but the potential of it is massive and really exciting.
That's really cool. So the question I always ask at this point is, if anyone wants to follow that story, Team Awesome, or want to follow you as an athlete regarding your ruck and everything we've just talked about, where should they go and look?
So for my personal one, it's Bex, BEX_sharp, SHARPE, and Team Awesome is at TEAM.AWSUM.
Awesome. Brilliant. That's cool. Fantastic. Well, Bex, we could probably talk hybrid all day. And I'm sure that there are people normally identify quite early if they're going to be a regular on our show. We're still fairly new when you compare in terms of how many episodes we've got. So I'm sure we'll hopefully see you again on here at some point. But thanks very much for coming on and sharing those thoughts on the Deadly Dozen and the ruck side of things in particular.
No, I'm honoured. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been great. Thank you.
Brilliant. And to everyone that has listened and watched today, if you're inspired by Bex's journey, Deadly Dozen is growing at a rapid speed. They've just literally announced a load of brand new cities across the UK where you can get involved in a town near you. Have a look at it. There's also lots of gym-based races that you can get involved in. So if what Bex has said to you resonates with you and you want to start this journey, why not get along to a race and give it a go? You will be able to get a ticket at this stage in a lot of those events if you plan yourself far enough ahead. Those tickets are already open and available for you to buy. But for today, to everyone that listened to Bex, please share this on to anyone who you think it is worth sharing to that might want to hear it. And to all our listeners, as always, thanks. Like, subscribe, comment. It's absolutely appreciated if you do that. And it really does make a difference to us, just the small guys that are here for passion. So please do share this episode where you can. And we will definitely be back talk more on the rocks.